right, thank you, Winnie and Elaine, for that amazing talk. We're going to move on to the Q&A session, as the third said. We'll be your moderators. I'm Tao V, the PAC rep for ASU.
And I'm Cassie, the PAC rep for Kappa Phi Lambda, one of Northeastern's Asian interest sororities.
And we're going to start off with a question for everyone. So I guess you can start with Maya and move down. What is your favorite Asian dish?
Oh, all right. So one of my favorite Asian dishes is sisig. If you guys are Filipino, you might know it's kind of just a bunch of like pork and stuff that's like ground up, or you can also make it out of milkfish. I really like it. I'm not too sure how else to describe it, but it's S-I-S-I-G. You should all make it.
I was not prepared for this question. I think I have too many favorite dishes, but the only thing I can think of right now is the drunken noodles that I'm going to get after this.
I'm also on the same wavelength as Amber. The only thing I can think of is scallion pancakes, which I mentioned in my talk.
Okay, now I'm completely drawing a blank. I don't think this is one I get. I'm so bad with microphones. I'm so sorry. I have no idea. I'm gonna say biryani just because I'm basic and also Indian. So.
Tough question. I would say my favorite food is Cantonese-style lobster that is fried and then cooked with ginger and scallions.
Yes, I will never like this question because there's way too much food I like to eat, but I think the first thing that pops in my mind is like anything soup-based. Personally, the first thing was fumoa. If you guys have ever tried it, it's so good. Probably better than pho, just saying.
Well, thank you for all sharing your favorite Asian dishes. Now I'm very hungry. But our first directed question is for our first speaker, Maya. What for you makes that difference between name and sexual orientation? Why did you feel comfortable telling your sisters and not your parents?
Oh, good question. You know, name and sexuality, they're kind of like two things that are things I kind of realized very recently. You know, name, as I said before, I realized when it was up in this summer, but then sexual orientation, that was something I realized sometime during the quarantine summer, like in 2020. And those things are like such large parts of my identity that I knew it's kind of like, it's not something you can just like actively say to anyone, because as sad as it is, you know, people might not accept you. And so when it came to deciding how to tell my family, if I wanted to tell my family, I also had to decide which ones to value first. And this is all just my own opinion when it comes to these things. People have different opinions when it comes to their own sexuality and their own like identity and stuff. But for me, I felt it was easier to start with a name. Start with a name with my entire family than it is to start with sexual orientation. Because to me, name was much more low-key and I guess quote-unquote hidden. You can easily hiding-able, whatever the word is, than sexual orientation is. You can hide your name, but you can't really hide boyfriend if in that same way. But when it came to my sisters, you know, funny story actually, I don't know anyone in my family that was part of the LGBT community until one of my cousins came out as bi. And so once I asked them about how they felt about my cousin, and they're like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. I didn't know about it either. I literally sent them the text, okay, that's pretty cool, because same. And that's all he said, and that's how I came out to it. I'm not too sure if I answered that question correctly, but it's like, honestly, it's like have your own ideas and see what you're safe with when it comes to like these things.
All right, thank you for that answer, Maya. It was wonderful. Our next question is for Amber. How do you like practice self-care and like relieve yourself from work now?
I think I'm definitely still in the process of learning how to do that. I think in the process of writing my talk, I came to realize that I'm out here giving this speech about what I'm going through, but I still haven't reached that stage of actually figuring out how to practice self-care. I think it started with watching Netflix was my break from work, and then that turned into something to distract me from everything that was going on, and now it's kind of turned into an unhealthy kind of coping mechanism. So I think for me, I'm starting to reconnect with my friends and my roommates that I've lived with for almost 4 years now, because they've been the things that have grounded me in the past when I've faced difficult situations, and having the close friends that I can actually speak honestly to when it's 3 a.m. at night and it might be raining outside, we might be walking back from going out together, or we're just eating dinner. But I think right now that's my main form of self-care that I'm trying to implement in my life, is just reconnecting to the people around me and actually talking about what's going on.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And next one is for Yan. While trying to recover, how did you stop obsessing over food? Someone for the audience has been trying to recover, but through all of this, it's making them think about food even more. So.
Yeah. First of all, props to you for actively taking on recovery. It is a very hard journey, so give yourself a pat on the back. So I talked about intuitive eating, which is really just giving into your cravings and not restricting yourself. And although there is definitely a period of time when you first start that you are obsessing over food because now you can have whatever you want, with time that will decrease and food will just be like something to sustain yourself and give you energy rather than something that you obsess over, because that obsession is really coming from the restriction that you have enacted on yourself. So I really just encourage everyone, or this person, to not restrict themselves. I think that's really going to help. And with time, you will be able to reorient your hunger and fullness cues to inform when to eat and when not to eat.
Thank you. That's really awesome. So our next question is for Noor. How do you think we can be more intentional in promoting our identities and creating a safe space? And also, how do you personally reconcile being Indian American but also part of a larger Asian American community? That was a lot of
Can you
words.
repeat the first part again?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
I can do that.
Just like, yeah, the first part. Thank you.
And I'll give you the second part after.
Yeah.
But so the first part was, how do you think we can be more intentional in promoting our identities and creating a safe space?
So I would say just overall, like, obviously don't like do like diversity applicants or anything like that, because that raises a whole other plethora of issues, but definitely be purposeful in, especially in Asia, because actually the ethnic breakdown of Asia is less diverse than it was last year, and that doesn't show any form of progress. If anything, it's like taking a step back. So I think just definitely also making sure that there are connections between organizations. Like one of the things that girl who came up to me at the info session said was like, she was really like, I didn't think South Asians were allowed to be in Asia. She fully like looked at me and she was like, you're the only one that I see here. And then just going off of that, it's like advertise these organizations outside of just who's already in it, if that makes sense. Like go to South Asian orgs or go to like LGBT orgs and be like, we have this space for South Asians and you guys are welcome here, and you guys are welcome here if you're queer, even if you're not East Asian. So just kind of like do better with outreach. Sorry, that's a little harsh, but like if you guys, if an effort was made, like people would respond to that. And I just feel like the fact that there isn't a deliberate effort, it just kind of exists as its own little cohort, and nobody really takes it anywhere else. So I feel like that's also an issue.
Thank you. Yeah.
What was the second part? I'm so sorry.
The second part was, how do you personally reconcile being Indian American but also a part of the larger Asian American community?
Yeah, so that's something I've struggled with a lot. It's just this feeling of like, every time that any Asian issue comes up, it's always like East Asian people always usually talk first about it, and they usually relate more to it, and then I'm kind of just like in a corner by myself with the two other South Asian people in Asia, like, okay, this is like cool to talk about, I guess. So it's been difficult, but I guess just seeing myself as part of the community because I belong here, and kind of internalizing the fact that yes, I do belong here, and like actively combating that like imposter syndrome voice in my head that's like, this is actually not for you, like just actively in my head being like, well actually it is, because India is literally in Asia, like that's just how it works. So I feel like kind of reaffirming that to yourself, and then again if like outreach improves, and like affirming to other people that yes, this is a space for South Asian people as well.
Thank you so much for sharing that. The next question is for Elaine. I guess this is something like a lot of us are encouraged to do, is like get out of our comfort zone. So the question is, what did you do to get out of your comfort
Ooh, that's a great question. I think it's not something that is linear. You know, if you feel comfortable in a certain instance to stay in your comfort zone, by all means do so. If you feel more empowered to step outside, also do so. I came into college wanting to find a place where I belonged. So I went out to all the clubs I was interested in. I did all my research online through what we had like a website called OrdSync before it was Campus Labs. So I looked up like all my interests there. I found clubs that I like. I went up to Fall Fest and heard more about organizations. And then, you know, if I felt uncomfortable, I would drag, you know, some friends or some roommates to go with me. And then once you make that first step in, there's always going to be someone that is willing to keep you there, or something that's willing to keep you there. And I think that leap of faith is something that you have to decide for yourself, whether that's worth or not worth taking. And I think just if you go into the mindset of, okay, this is something I want to do, no matter how difficult, I'm going to do it, you can do it and you will do it. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, thank you, Elaine. That was very inspiring. Okay, so the next one's for Winnie. How did you come to learn your own worth after your breakup, and how long did it take? Sorry, could you just repeat? How did you come to learn your own worth after your breakup, and how long did it take? I'm not gonna lie, and it did not. I felt very worthless for a very long time. But it I don't know. I look back on it now, and I don't feel I think as sad as I used to. Part of it probably was related to the fact that I think being so far away from my support system made me kind of find within myself the strength to reach out and build a new support system. And I realized that, for a long time I thought that I needed to rely on other people to have that, and I think I came back and I was honestly really mortified, really embarrassed for the longest time, because I was really, you went to study abroad, and at the time what I thought was the worst thing that could happen happened, and I came back and I didn't want to see anyone. And it was really weird because I needed to be around friends, and I needed supportive faces, but at the same time I was really afraid of telling people, because I honestly felt embarrassed. I was I thought that if I told other people, it would make them also realize how unlovable I was. But that time that I spent by myself, I think I reconnected with all the things that I personally used to like that I stopped doing after I got into that relationship. So I started reading again. I started reaching out to people that I had briefly met my freshman year. And I realized that, I lost a lot of myself, and I reconnected with all the things that made me feel more me, and I was I like doing these things, and I kind of like who I am when I'm doing these things. And I think that's kind of when it clicked for me that, I don't need other people to know that I am worth a lot more than other people could ever really capture, and that's the first step. And then also personally for me, it was looking on my friends and thinking about how awesome they were and how grateful I was to have them, and realizing how much I valued them. That's how I wanted my close friends to view me, right? I didn't want people to look at me and not think that I was not valuable, and if they were, they didn't have a place in my life. So yeah, that's kind of the long and not so short part to it. So I hope that answers the question. I'm sorry, I rambled a lot.
Well, thank you so much. And on the topic of support from friends and connecting, this is a question for everybody, and it's also a theme I think a lot of you guys touched on in each of your talks. But what does support look like to you? If you want to go down and briefly answer.
Good question. Honestly, good question. Support. What does support look like for me? Honestly, support is meeting the needs that meeting the level of intensity that I need right now. You know, sometimes people can be too supportive, you know? And sometimes people can be like way less supportive than you need. So it's kind of like what support looks like to me is like meeting what you yourself are emotionally feeling at that point. Because you know, there are some people that I know if I talk to about certain things, they'll hit me with like, oh my God, I'll be here for you. I'm gonna always be here for you. And then there's some people that if I feel like I go to them, I don't think they're gonna be giving me that same kind of level. They'll be like, okay, cool, you know, I'll be here for you. Like if you want to talk. But sometimes all you need is just like, yo, are you okay? You want a hug? And it's just like sometimes I go all across the spectrum. I need someone to be like, oh my God, are you okay? Sometimes I need someone to be like, you know, I'm here for you. And sometimes I need something, you know, it's like Goldilocks, you know? Sometimes you need like a soft bed, sometimes I need a rock hard bed, sometimes I need Tempur-Pedic, you know? So that's what it is, like, and this is something that changes a lot between day to day or even like by the hour. It's just like meeting what you want in the moment.
I think I 100% agree with everything Maya just said. I think to me, support is kind of the same way. I know that I have different friends and different communities that I can go to and receive different types of responses. And sometimes for me, the support is just understanding that I do need my alone time right now. I do need to just sit alone in my room and, I don't know, turn on my mood lights and turn some Spotify on and just lay in bed. But also sometimes that support is having friends to hang out with on the weekends, or maybe between classes, just grabbing a quick lunch. And I feel like knowing the type of person that I am, I'm usually very stubborn. And even though I recognize that I might have an issue or that there's a problem that I can probably work on addressing more actively, sometimes I need those friends who are there to gently nudge me along the way and remind me that, hey, like, if you need the support, we're here for you, but we're not going to actively dump that support all over you and overwhelm you right at this instant. So to me, I think it's the same analogy. It's just Goldilocks. It's hard to tell. Sometimes I don't even know what kind of support I need.
Yeah, for me, and with respect to like my journey, I think support, or what I needed was maybe someone to recognize that there was something off with me, because even myself, I was denying that I was like having an eating disorder. So I think that would have been a great form of support. But something that I've been actively working on, especially with a psychiatric illness, you really have to just recognize that it's not your fault. It's a lot of things. It's culture, it's your genetics, it's so much. And don't put yourself at fault for anything that happens. And because that's what I did, and I think that really stunted my recovery a lot. So just realizing that and forgiving yourself is the support that you need, and then you can provide support for others.
Okay, yeah, so what support means to me is, I mentioned this a bit in my talk, but I compartmentalize everything. So support for me is having a space where I don't have to constantly do that, because I feel like I tend to split my brain into different levels, where like one of them is processing what I'm doing right now, and then one of them is processing like something that happened last week, and then one thing is processing like the constant identity crisis I'm having, clearly. But yeah, so I feel like just having a space where I don't have to do that in every aspect of, I guess, my mind, like I can fully express myself, and I don't have to like be like, well, in this situation I can only be this, but I can't be this. So just having a space where I can do that without fear of being judged, or fear of being ostracized, or fear of being like the only one who is feeling that way. So, yeah.
Not to echo any of the speakers that were said already, but I think support to me is not only who or what you reach out to in times of need, but also like who you want to share like happy news with, who you want to share your life with. I think those mean a lot more than the people who are there for you in times of need, because they should be there for you always. And I think over time I've come to realize that quality is definitely better than quantity. I can have a lot of friends who say like they'll support me, or that they're here for me, or like can reach out to me. I can reach out to them if I have any concerns or whatever, and I know that they all are genuine in doing that. But there are only, in my specific instance, I don't open up to a lot of people a lot, so I think it means more meaningful that like my support system or people who want to become a part of that support system not only are willing to mention that to me, but also allowing me to take up my own space and reach out to them whenever I need to.
Yeah, I think everyone has like talked about really, I think we need ways of like support, and also that like I also kind of feel like are important to me, but I guess like something a little different is kind of like, I mean, my first thought was kind of like the unspoken like kind of support, like rather than, you know, like Elaine was saying, like the person like being like reaching out to you and saying like, oh, you know, I'm there for you, need you, and that's really great. It's not that I don't appreciate that, but it's sometimes it's the small things too, you know, like I come back and I'm like really tired and had a really rough day, and I just can't I just can't wash a single dish right now, and like usually it's Kenny, I'm sorry. like you know, having like someone to do that for me and not having to check in and see how I'm doing per se, but like just kind of sensing that, you know, maybe you just need a little help like here or like a little help there, and that always means like 1,000 words to me, because I will never like personally tell someone to do that for me, because I know that eventually I'll get it done, but taking kind of like those small little like burdens, I guess, is how they feel sometimes, like off my shoulders. And so, yeah, speaks volumes.
Nice, thank you guys for your answers. And I know like PAACx is a really great community. Everyone here is really friendly, and everyone can form that support system for you. Moving on to something that's pretty relevant to this previous question, we're going to be doing our last one, and it is for everyone again. So what is your favorite thing about the Asian American community here, and what can Northeastern/PAACx do to be more inclusive of students who share one or more of your intersectional identities? You can start with whoever is ready. It's a loaded question.
Can you repeat the last part again?
So the first part was, what was your favorite thing? And the second part is, what can Northeastern/PAACx do to be more inclusive of students who share one or more of your intersectional identities?
Okay, wow, really great question, guys. Wow, impressed with that. That was like a full-on paragraph right there. Honestly, one of my favorite things is just like how, and this might sound like, you know, very basic to say, but like how welcoming and almost like kind of how casual things have been. I was really involved with PAACx or ASU or PAACx like at all really my freshman year. I went to maybe like 3 GMs, and like to make it up for it in spring semester, I tried to be a part of culture show, but RIP that because, you know, March of 2020. But then, you know, especially over like the last year, I started to become more of a thing, and like it didn't feel like I had to try as hard to like belong. It was very casual. And just like talking to people, and like even right now, in the middle of this like events right now, I realized, and I literally that entire section back there, like I recognize like everyone there. I'm just like, wow, like go PAACx. Like thank you guys for like welcoming me, honestly, because like, you know, I didn't really think like, you know, freshman year I'd be here literally on the stage talking about this at PAACx. I didn't even know what PAACx was, but here I am. You know, I'm like the secretary of a club in PAACx. I'm talking about my experiences. You know, I have, you know, an entire like posse out here supporting me, and like this is all just because, you know, PAACx has been so like supportive and welcoming. You know, when your identities support you, are also supported. You know, throw back to my talk. But then also when it comes to like, you know, supporting like different parts, like, you know, supporting like the intersectionality of identity and stuff. You know, one thing for me, because I talked about both like names as well as, you know, like other parts of my identity, such as my sexual orientation. You know, like one of the things I would like also to see is like kind of branching out, because sometimes I think that maybe like each club, or even in general, like PAACx itself is kind of like a bubble. You know, you see all these people all across campus, but you only see these people. You know, maybe kind of just like reaching out to other little bubbles, and so that maybe you can find and create some giant bubble. I'm not too sure if that analogy makes that much sense, but yeah, I'm working there.
To kind of echo that in a way, I think my favorite thing about our community here is how, I guess, open everyone is. I have definitely, obviously, been a part of this community for a very long time, and I think every single year I just have more and more experiences where I'm meeting new people all the time, and yes, there's like the same group of people that we do see, this like consistent people and consistent community, but I think the fact that over the past few years I could literally approach anyone and just start a random conversation. We might have no idea who each other are, we don't even know our names, but I've never had someone shut me down from having a conversation. Everyone I've approached, everyone I've ever asked for advice or even anything, whether it's at a GM or a larger event or sometimes when we're just running into people on campus, everyone has always been so accepting and so, I guess, quick to offer to help in the future, and all of those connections, I feel, at least in my experience, have always been maintained to some extent, and I've never, particularly had a bad interaction with someone where I get the feeling that, this is not something I enjoy about the community here. Every single interaction I've had has been so positive, and obviously that's one of the things that has continued to motivate me to remain part of the community and try to become more involved over the years, and kind of going from that into how our community can also be more supportive and accepting. I think branching out is a very large thing, and I think what Nora mentioned in one of the responses before is, I think, representation. Because when you see someone who either looks like you or has the same identity as you, that itself is already such a large motivator to show that I can actually be here and that you're not going to be that quote-unquote sore thumb sticking out of the room and then you question yourself whether you actually belong here or not. So I think to be more intentional with our clubs and even other organizations, hosting events with other organizations that are not typically within the PAAC community and being more intentional on, I guess, exposure to our cultures and having that intersectionality is really important to be able to even show people that this is an open community and this is a supportive community and it is an inclusive community.
Yeah, this is a really great question, and I wish I had more time to think about it. But I think genuinely one of my favorite parts about being a part of PAAC is just how welcoming everyone is. For example, this year I have kind of stepped away from the PAAC community, but even just coming out to speak at PAACx, I've been so thankful just for everyone's support, even if they don't know me, as well as I know other people, but that just means so much. And in terms of what we can do to improve the community, echo to whatever was just said, seriously, all of that. One thing I would also suggest is just providing spaces to allow these kinds of conversations to happen, because everyone has such a different viewpoint, a different experience in their journey, and we can all learn so much from one another, but sometimes that kind of gets lost in the madness of things. So having these spaces like PAACx and continuing to have these spaces where we can talk to one another and share our stories means a lot.
Okay, so first of all, one of my favorite things about PAAC has definitely got to be ASU and Asia and my fans within those, and then just those clubs as a whole, because I feel like they actually really were one of the first places ever where it was a big organization, an official organization where I felt like I didn't have to go back into the closet or say that I use different pronouns or a different name, and I feel like a lot of times, a lot of these big clubs on campus or whatever, they are so intimidating because you feel like you have to be this super polished professional version of yourself. And I think one of the good things about the organizations that I have seen is that they don't make you do that. You feel like you can actually be yourself and you don't have to constantly be super organized all the time, and you're allowed to just be casual and be low-key even at events like this where you're speaking. Again, I still feel obviously there is a professionalism there, but it's also at the same time it's not in an intimidating way. And as for things that I think could be improved, Stop making intersectionality a footnote because it's constantly like, you get the one little gender sexuality biweekly and then, oh my god, like that's it. You get the one representation and then that's it. And it's just like, it's the little things that really matter. Like this is gonna be kind of random and I know it's small, but it's like, at the ASU meet and greet, I'm not sure if any of you guys were there, but a few of the questions were like, oh, like what's your favorite Asian snack? And I recognized none of them. Because they were all like East Asian, and I was sitting there like, what is a shrimp chip? Like I did not know. And obviously it's like little things like that, but obviously outside of that, it's just like being more inclusive overall. Like intersectionality isn't just like this little buzzword that you use once and then you move on and you're like, okay, like that sure is a problem, like tomorrow, and then you're just like never thinking about it again. It's like, it's this constant thing that needs to be integrated into everything. So it can't just be like, oh, we had our diversity talk already, like we're done. It has to be consistent and it also has to be deliberate. Like you can't just do it because you think like, oh, it's like popular right now to be like, oh, like so intersectional. It's like, you have to make a conscious effort to be inclusive and to make sure that everybody feels represented. So yeah.
What was the question? Oh, sorry, yes. So I think several things I really like about our community is that you can come in at any time, you can join anytime, you can leave anytime, you can come back anytime. And that's like, there's no expectation of you to stay 100% committed, even though there are a lot of people who do, and you know, I commend you for that. And then there's no expectation for you to know everything going into it. Like before college, I never really considered what my Asian American identity means to me. And I think I've learned a lot through PAACx and through the Asian American Center, like what it means to be a leader, what it means to be comfortable in my own skin, and you know, what it means that all of my identities come together and how does that make me me. And I think, as I said before, you know, I love that my community continues to pushes me to grow, and you know, with different people in the club and different leadership, you know, there's always new opinions and like new viewpoints that are brought to the table that haven't been considered before. And I think that, you know, a strong push for any young upperclassmen in the room, you know, definitely take on leadership opportunities, you know, be the voice that you want. What am I calling it? Be the voice that you want represented.
So I think everybody has given like really awesome answers for that first part, and I totally feel the same, like I have the same sentiment for that. I think one thing that I'll add is that honestly, one of my favorite things about being in PAACx, having been on Team PAACx, and worked, like I was really involved with SACE for a while too, and like it's just, honestly, it's just the people. It's like really all of you. Like every person I've met, any person who's like come across and touched my heart in any way, y'all have challenged me to grow and have inspired me to be like a better version of myself every time. And I think that like, well, I really meant it when I said that. I'm not the person that I am without all of you. So there's that. And then the last thing I'll add, everyone's talked about kind of like branching out, and I think that's really important, like reaching out to other like communities of color and other like disadvantaged communities, because you know that's where our power is in unity and in unifying with other groups. I'll also just really quickly add, you know, the best way we can be diverse is to amplify your voices. You know, you come to a university for you. This is your education, and you take a hold of it, and you tell people and you show people what you want out of it, because at the end of the day, you don't pay a lot of money to come here and not get anything from it. So, you know, amplify your voices, amplify your friends' voices. This is for students, you know, so you might as well make the best out of it.
Thank you for your very thorough responses. With that, that concludes our Q&A session and the time we have for our PAACx event. We'll be taking a photo with all the speakers and council members. If any of you have any questions, especially since we didn't get to all of them and some of you submitted some like really great ones, feel free to come up to the left side of the stage, and the speakers who are feeling up to answering any one-on-one questions.
I'm so sorry.
That is the left side.
Okay.
Yes. So yeah, if any of you guys are like feeling up, you can like go up and like speak to them one-on-one. But yeah, also feel free to come up to any member of like PAACx Council for any questions. But yes, thank you all for coming, and let's give one last round of applause for our speakers.